Macmillan Audio presents Hell's Foundation's Quiver by David Weber. Read for you by Oliver Wyman. March, Year of God, 897. Chapter 1. Merlin Athrawis' Chamber, Heresian Embassy, Sidar City, Republic of Siddarmark. The roaring, shingle-lifting bluster of snow-laden wind only made the sudden, profound silence more complete. The slight sound as a coal settled on the modest bedchamber's hearth seemed almost deafening, and Merlin Athrawis stood very still, shoulders against the door he'd just closed behind him, sapphire eyes gazing intently through the fire-flicked dimness at the slender woman in the single chair beside that hearth. The woman who had just called him Abraham. Which, he reflected, made the question of how she'd managed to get by the alert sentinels guarding the Heresian embassy here in the heart of Sidar City rather secondary. The heavy utilitarian coat hanging from his coat tree, like the boots and thick woolen stockings she'd slipped from slim, pedicured feet and set before the fire, was soaked with melting snow. The firelight cast dancing light and shadow across her brilliant, expressive eyes, gleamed on the gold and topaz encircling her aristocratic throat, and struck subdued highlights from hair that was almost as dark as Charlene Armach's own, and the gown she'd worn under that plain, serviceable coat was as exquisitely designed and cut as it was expensive. She was quite possibly the most beautiful woman he'd ever met, and he could smell the subtle sweetness of her perfume, but none of those things were what held him so still. "Why," he asked after a moment, in a tone which sounded considerably calmer than it should have, "did you call me Abraham, Madame Parson?" He cocked his head, expression puzzled. "I assume it's a reference to Master Zevens?" "You really are very good," Ava Parson, who'd once been known as Angelic Fonda, among many other names, said approvingly. "Why, you could almost, I say, convince me. But you can't, you know. I've been watching you for too long, and I have a very good memory for details." "Watching me?" he repeated. "Watching me do what? I haven't made any special effort to keep my comings and goings here in Sidar City secret from you or the Lord Protector, or from your agents, now that I think about it." "Well," she said thoughtfully, leaning back and crossing her long legs elegantly. She propped one elbow on the chair arm and rested her chin on the palm of a perfectly manicured hand as she gazed up at him like a woman contemplating a problem to which she devoted much thought. "I'll concede that at least a part of what gave you away were things I could see working together with you and His Majesty here in the capital, but that wasn't really decisive. No. What finally convinced me my absurd suspicions might actually be well-founded wasn't so much the many interesting things you were doing here as it was the timing of all those occasions when you weren't here, shall we say?" "In what way?" The tall, broad-shouldered Imperial Guardsman folded his arms across his chest and raised one eyebrow. "And while I'm asking questions, what sort of suspicions, well-founded or not, are we talking about?" "The world went the better part of 1,000 years without a single verified Sagean sighting," Madame Parson replied. "Then, all of a sudden, you surfaced. In Caris, of all places. During the war against the Fallen, not a single Sagean, not one of them, Merlin, was ever reported in remote, backwater, unimportant little countries."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?